How's everybody doing? Today's video is going to be part 3 of my What Guitar Would I Buy for X Amount of Money series. Part 1 was What Guitar Would I Buy for $100. Part 2 was What Guitar Would I Buy for $200. Today is What Guitar Would I Buy for $300. And so on and so forth. I think when I get to 1,000, I'm going to, or after maybe a couple thousand, I'll do bigger increments. But for now, today's video is What Guitar Would I Buy for $300. So as before, the 3 resources I'm going to use for this are Guitar Center used listings, Sweetwater new listings, and Reverb all listings in that price range. So I just now, today, as I started this video, because I wanted to get set up first because these typically take a while, I just today realized you can set a minimum and a maximum price on all 3 of these websites at the same time. So you can set like a minimum price 200, maximum price 300, so that's picking up where we left off and ending at the $300 price. So I guess, I knew that you could, set a maximum price or whatever, but I didn't know you could do a range. So that's kind of interesting. So picking up at the $200 price point on Guitar Center, we have a Mitchell MS450, not interested in this Ibanez. I'm going to skim through these ones that are on the lower end of the range in general because they're close already to the price range of what I just bought, or not bought, but what I just chose in the $200 video. So, I'm going to look at them all, but I'm not necessarily going to go really in depth with them. So, unless there's one that really stands out. And today, you may hear it. Right now, it's not doing anything, but for the next few hours, I'm basically under some severe weather here. So if you hear it start to rain, which I doubt, but this is also the first time I've used this microphone setup in this room, so I'm not sure really how sensitive my mic is. I've got a decent amount of volume, but still the same amount of gain, and that's a contender actually at 230 right there. See, you thought I was just rambling and not paying attention, but I am skimming these listings. Let's see. It's also been a very high pollen time of year here, so if I sound congested, I apologize. But the good thing is, even if I do get some severe weather coming in, I'm in my new house and I just got my storm shelter installed, so I won't have to really worry about it. No matter what happens, I can just run down the hall and get down in my shelter and I'll be safe. I've opened up a couple contenders here on the lower end of the price range than I thought I would, so that's kind of nice. I think the first 2 price points, $100 and $200, are pretty difficult, and especially I learned in the $200 price point video that there's really not much that is offered, like from Sweetwater, for example, for $200 these days, which that, it used to be you could get a real basic guitar for like $80 to $90. You know, and then 200 you had a lot of choices of a bunch of crap, but you still had a lot of choices. But now there's like no choices even at that range. So there's hardly any choices for 200 for something that's brand new. This thing here, I'm pretty sure that I saw these in the $100 price range video. This is a Gibson Baldwin. I mean, Gibson is the parent company, but it's not a Gibson anything. It's literally made out of plywood. And I had one of these. That was my first guitar. It was all black, but in actuality, this is way overpriced. That's crazy right there. Slick guitars I've actually been kind of interested in, to be honest. I don't know if that's an original finish or not, but that's kind of fascinating. These are, see, I've gotten kind of sidetracked with this, which is kind of impressive. Slick or Earl Slick or whatever, these are a Far Eastern made guitar from, I think the company is Guitar Fetish, that makes parts normally, and they're now making these like parts caster type guitars. They have like a Tele style, they have a Strat style under the Slick brand. I've always found them kind of like, I hate to say, they have a little bit of a specific charm to them. I mean, if I was in a store and I saw this thing, I would play it for sure. I would have to try it out. They're cheap when they're brand new. This is pretty cheap. I've never seen this type of finish on one, but it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like it could be factory. The problem with buying the new Slick guitars that I've noticed for a while is they're always sold out of almost every model. So that to me means that they're underpriced. But I'm sure the prices have gone up since that happened, obviously. Anyway, I'll get back to that later. What in the world is that? That is hideous. I'm sure there's going to be a lot that are marked right at $249.99. Seems to be a pretty solid plateau of prices here. Oh, there's a Yamaha Pacifica. That's a contender. Still at $249. I don't honestly know who makes Daisy Rock, but they don't really have a vibe of quality to me, so I've never tried to seek one out or play one or anything like that. Let's see. Well, now we're in the range of 254. That's probably a decent guitar, but it's not what I would pick. That's probably a decent guitar. That's cool. That almost looks like a super cheap version of a Steve Vai guitar right there. Just, but not really, but sort of the same layout. I've noticed a thing too with these like $300-ish guitars. I'm opening this one as an example because they'll do like a ridiculous, huge flame top veneer that probably is not active. Like if you were to turn it or whatever, it's got to be a super thin veneer on like a body that's probably not desirable for the body wood, but it looks super nice. So anyway, it's interesting to see these really fat quilt patterns on these cheap guitars. There's something called a Firefly single cutaway, but it's obviously an homage to the Anaconda burst, I think they call it, whatever that green burst / Les Paul is. But I mean, this looks pretty bad, to be honest. It doesn't look good at all to me. That's probably pretty nice. I'm already noticing that I'm finding a lot more in between $200 and $300 than I think I ever found under $200, even approaching it. What the heck is that? Just a ton of spalted maple on everything. There's a lot of single cutaway guitars. I mean, not an LTD, but like Global E90, Firefly, stuff like that, which it's like I've never even heard of. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if that's like the one that I already have opened up, though. I think after this vendor, I'm going to have to narrow the options down to 3 before I go into the next vendor, because I don't want to open up like a million tabs of each one, since I'm finding so many interesting options. I like the color of this, but I wouldn't pick this particular guitar. Page 21 out of 35, so let's see. These videos are inherently long, so I don't want to spend too much time just dawdling. Epiphone Les Paul Studio for $284.99 used. That is probably a decent guitar, although I'm not really a big fan of the gloss Epiphone finishes. Okay, we're at $299.99, and there's 11 pages to go. So that's another very popular price point, $299.99. Kramer Night V is kind of interesting. I want to say these things have a mahogany body, if they're these satin ones that I'm thinking of. I'm not interested in any Squires, really. I mean, really at all. So, but I'm seeing that there's some nicer Squires starting to come into this price for used ones. This right here, this Agile 2500, I have had a couple of older Agile guitars from back in the day, and they are actually built pretty well. The metal of the bridge and the bridge posts is not very corrosion resistant, but the electronics are really good. Everything else is pretty durable about them. I mean, I just recently sold mine when I moved, like a couple months ago. And I sold them to Guitar Center, and they were in perfect working order. And actually, the people that bought them at Guitar Center loved them, which was shocking because, you know, they were just kind of my old childhood guitars. But I did upgrade the pickups in them, so that probably helped. Oh, I used to want one of these. Speaking of Agiles, I used to think this was really cool. S by Solar. So I've never actually played a Solar guitar. They're not really my style as far as the metal focus, but apparently this is like their sub brand is S by Solar. So you know where, although I mean, as far as I know, Solar guitars are all Far Eastern made. So I don't know really where the main line is made and where these are made, but these are apparently the cheaper line. But that's the first one that I've actually ever seen since the announcement. So somebody obviously sold that pretty quick, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. They could have just needed to sell it. Trying to make sure I don't miss any gems in these last few pages. And I didn't. Okay, so I'm gonna run down to a top 3 from Guitar Center before I move on. So Here's an Ibanez Artcore. It's a semi-hollow. I think I've only ever done solid bodies in this series, so I may have to exclude it now that I think about it, just for the sake of comparison, because once we keep going through this, I might have to do a whole separate series for semi-hollow, so I guess I'll exclude semi-hollow, which means that one too, even though I'm sure it'd be good. This is interesting because I had the probably not the very cheapest Sawtooth, but the cheapest Michelangelo Badio Sawtooth signature model that was autographed. I did a video on. And as far as the design, meaning like the neck profile and such like that, I thought it was designed very well, but the execution was a little cheap because the materials were cheap. I mean, you can kind of see in this photo, it really doesn't look great. I mean, it looks like kind of a blob. So I'm pretty sure that I would not like that, actually. Here's a Kramer Night V. The fact that this is so cheap is actually a little bit intriguing to me, because if this has a mahogany body, that's a really good deal. Look, they've got a little holder for the tools right there. That's kind of fascinating. What is the body wood on this? A mahogany body with a satin black finish, maple neck, and an ebony fretboard with Alnico 5 humbuckers. So that is what I was thinking of. That's a pretty strong offering for a decent sized V guitar. And it's Kramer, which is owned by Gibson, so they know how to make a V. It's a bolt-on. This is kind of like just a no-nonsense. That's actually cool. I mean, to be quite honest, that's like really, that's kind of interesting. The last couple of videos, I had to sort of land on what guitar that I would get for $100 or for $200, but I had no real excitement about it. Obviously, the excitement is going to build as the price points go up. So this is probably the first one that I've seen where I was like, you know what? I would actually consider buying that, not just for the sake of saying I would buy it, but that's something that I have a little bit of intrigue about. I might play one if I see one at the store later. Also right here, ESP F series, I think they're called. They have this outrageous shape. I've always kind of liked this shape. It kind of reminds me of like a gnarled branch or a bush or something like that. This one looks like it has a giant scratch or a crack right there. But if that was in, oh, and it's got a huge neck right there. Yeah, it's got some dings. If this was in, great shape, I would leave it as a contender, because I think this is a really fascinating guitar shape that I would like to eventually have one of, but not this one exactly. And here is an Agile, which I think has a really interesting top. It's basically mother of toilet seat for the whole top. So I bet that it actually, if anything, it probably has a negative effect on the sound. But it's definitely eye-catching. It's fascinating too. It looks like they've got a much more accurate horn on this. It's like the headstock is different from how I would think of an Agile, and this cutaway is different from how I think of an Agile. So that's interesting. Let's see. I'm trying to see how many I have left so I can get myself to a top 3. These I've always found interesting, not necessarily the foreign ones, but like a Dean USA hardtail. But I'm not sure where this one was made. If this was made in Korea, which is, it's entirely possible that this was made in Korea. If it was, then that looks like a strong contender. So that one's still a contender. Epiphone Dot, excluding that. Gretsch. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these Eastern-made Gretsch guitars, they vaguely catch my attention at first, and then I sort of look at them and like look at this neck joint, and I just think, no. So this one I think I'm going to rule out because I've had an Ibanez Gem Junior before, and they do not age very well. I didn't use mine that much, and it was already getting corrosion and such, and this one looks like it has the same issue. It just reminds me of that guitar. I think this would be, like, this bridge is probably very rusty, and yeah, the frets are pretty much tarnished over. Not reflective at all. Yeah, this thing's been played a lot, but it hasn't taken it very well. Okay, we got 1, 2, that's out. So we're down to 4. The Night V, Pacifica, Dean Hardtail, and a Slick. Honestly, the Slick guitar would lose against the Pacifica, so I have to rule it out. And here we are at Sweetwater. For starting at $200 at Sweetwater, you now get, and I'm not really picking on Sweetwater for the pricing, because this is probably the same pricing if I looked at new on Guitar Center and whatever else, but a micro Ibanez for $200. A demo of a Kramer Beretta Special, which I want to say these debuted a couple years ago at like $190 or something, and now a demo is $206, and this is white, which is not even that interesting. They have some much better colors than that. So $200, it looks like you're getting into, like, as far as new, you're getting into like beginner bundles. So man, well, there's a Pacifica. So why would you have all this like crap, and then for $1 more there's a Pacifica? I guess because it's not a bundle, but I mean, those are well made. Oh, I guess Beretta Special is now $230 or $229. That's the color. That right there, that's the color. Oh, for God's sake. Look at these. Wow. So, I mean, up to 250, I'm more disappointed than not in what you can get new anymore. That's kind of cool. A 7-string King V, that's going to be just some atrocious body wood. In fact, so is so is this, I'm sure. Let's see. Poplar body. Yeah, that's not really that interesting. Okay, back to here. Epiphone power players, that's a new thing. These are obviously small. Look how small the body is compared to the pickups. That's got to be like for babies. That's kind of cool looking, but I bet the rest of the body is poplar. Let's take a look. Poplar art grain. Oh, even the top is poplar. Huh. Oh no, it's a poplar art grain top and an Okume body, but it's not available yet. I don't know what that means. They have it stained, at least, to look like an alternative of mahogany, which actually Ibanez is pretty good at, so I would probably trust some totally exotic wood name that Ibanez is using to actually sound good rather than poplar. More of this item is on the way, which means it's already out, so I guess that's a contender. Let's see. Just a lot of player packs. I think these player packs used to be like $100 less a couple years ago. It's kind of sad what has happened here with inflation. See, we're at $2.99. That's it. We had 5 pages right there. I wanted to narrow it down to 3, and I actually have only 3 open, so it's that, or that. Now let's move on to Reverb. So here's something interesting. I'm on Reverb, solid body electric guitars. Price, $200 to $300. I guess what I'm seeing is if it was originally listed for $200, but it's on sale, it counts in here. But the problem is now there are just too many things listed that have come down in price, because I'm not going to look under what you'd actually pay. Okay, so here we go. 200 starts right here. Oh man, this is going to be rough. I can already tell. I might have to go through these first few pages pretty quick. Oh my God, here's a copy of an ESP F shape. I just had a huge sigh that I just didn't want to do right into the microphone. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's going to be about a million things that are right at $200 that are just kind of junk, probably. See, there's a Slick SL57. I still would like to try one of those. Just any kind of Slick, like a Strat or Tele style. What's all this? Okay, well, I guess Reverb is not responding. Now that I'm looking at it, that right there, the Dean Custom Zone, I think those guitars were totally monochrome, including that they painted the fretboard. It was either painted or some kind of acrylic. So that is a black on black on black guitar with a black fretboard that is probably not ebony. It's probably just painted black. Let's try to get this site to do something. Well, this is not the page that I was looking at before. Well, that's quite a color. I've never heard of that before, swing guitar technology, but that's an interesting looking finish, so I've clicked on that. What on earth is that? That's kind of interesting. Man, the thing about Reverb that seems to be unique is that there are completely random prices in here, like $213.75, $213.77, $213.74. It's like they're not like the typical plateau pricing, you know, $214.99 that they would all be, or $224.99, $249.99. People can, I guess, just set whatever they want, or maybe there's some kind of algorithm in here that encourages people to set a price a certain percent lower or something, but that's just sad. Somebody upgraded this guitar that's a bolt-on Epiphone that I just morbid curiosity. I have to look and see what pickups this has. Upgraded pickups. Okay, what is it? What kind of pickups? What are they? Upgraded pickups to what? Okay, well, that's useless. We'll come back to that. It seems like Reverb has a lot of listings. Oh my god, there's a double neck that they won't even show the front of right there. This is an interesting name, Nashville Guitar Works, but for $220, it's not going to be made in Nashville. If it was $2,200, possibly. There's some weird ones here. I mean, I know the oil can guitars have some kind of heritage, but what is this? Oh God. An acrylic guitar. You know, there's some people that would say that acrylic makes no difference to the sound as making a guitar out of wood, because wood makes no difference to the sound. That's why all guitars are not, you know, made of acrylic or something more sustainable than wood, which actually sounds better. But I digress. What? Pirates of the Caribbean, Les Paul, 2006, black all over except the top? Is that what it says? I've never heard of such a thing. Except previous owner painted the top cream color. So would it have a graphic before? That would have been cool. Oh my gosh. I didn't even know they ever had such a thing. I gotta look that up. Sure enough, it has a graphic. Somebody thought, you know what? I want this Epiphone, but I don't want this graphic. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't want that. It's already like a satin Epiphone. That's not bad. How much is this thing? $450. Okay, well, that's for another video. Huh. Okay, interesting. I didn't know about that one. It's vaguely windy outside, but it's not currently raining or anything. It's going to be probably windy all day with on and off storms. But that's kind of how the weather is here. Silvertone reissue. I don't really have any connection with Silvertone. So I don't have any interest in that, but some people very well might. I mean, I think I have an understanding of their history, but I could even be wrong. I think they used to make guitars decades ago that were probably some sort of small American-made outfit, and then they went Far East, and now they're just kind of making retro relics. That is atrocious. That is really, really just... That's a disgrace right there. That's just terrible. In case you can't see this for some reason, it says rock and roll right here, heavy metal right here. But it's just a turd that's painted to look like the Frankenstrat. That is one of the worst ones that I have seen yet. I think this and this are the same color, but in reality it looks more like this, and if you photograph it in a weird way it looks like this. That's interesting. There's a lot of $230 guitars on Reverb, I'll tell you that. I might have to actually fast forward. There's parts of this where I'm just scrolling through pages, and I might have to either fast forward or just make some cuts. What in the world? That's tiny. That's a tiny guitar. That's interesting. Never seen that before. These cachified things are interesting. I'd like some of these actually, but they're all on these Squiers, which I mean, I bet they sell a lot because they're still pretty affordable, but they're throwing on like these very strange, unique upgrades to what's still a Squier. I mean, like, some of these would be funny just to buy one of these as a joke and just take it out and play with it. Just kind of see what everybody says. Man, there's just so many listings on Reverb. Hopefully, as the price range goes up, there will be fewer listings. But right now, there's an awful lot, and it's an awful lot to choose from. Oh my gosh, this is brand new. Whatever that, I think I've already got one of those opened up. Yeah, I do. What? Look at that. Wow. That is just... Pink on red. White pickups, maple, and chrome. That is unacceptable. There we go. Oh yeah. That's a nice paint job for that, but I don't know what Musi Furgo Fusion is. But it looks like a pretty good sparkle paint job, which, you know, a sparkle paint job like that on a guitar is probably going to choke out some resonance that if you have working ears, you'd probably notice. In order to get like metal flake that's that big in the paint, it's got to be pretty thick. And here's one, Musi Capricorn Fusion. I'm actually myself a Musi Stegosaurus Fusion, but I'm a Popcorn Rising, similar to the Capricorn Fusion, if you guys wanted to know my stethoscope. Which means I'm not compatible with that guitar. That's why I skipped it. You know, I think the last few videos looking at reverb has been brutal for how much nonsense they have on here. I mean, now I'm stuck in about the $250 price point, and this is going to take me forever to get through. Okay, here is what I was talking about with the Dean Custom Zone. Fluorescent pink, and it's got like a pink painted fretboard, or if not, just an acrylic fretboard. But it's probably painted because acrylic would be a little bit much for how they made those back then. Oh, look at this person. They've got all kinds of them. Wow. So here's something I've never heard of before. Jim Cat. There's been a couple of them on the previous pages that were not that interesting. That's a really weird one. That's a really weird one. I don't know anything about that, but they're popping up in like the $290 range. They're making basically copies of existing body shapes. but with some really strange finishes apparently, potentially. So I guess I'll look at those when I get to them. So far, I have been just bored out of my mind. I probably will have done a fast forward through a lot of the last like 50 pages or whatever that I've just looked at where there was nothing interesting. I mean, really nothing interesting to comment on. That's ridiculous. So I'm now at $2.99. There's going to be probably 200 pages of $2.99. That is weird. Look at this picture. There's a guitar on top of a crowd of people at a concert. And now we're back into just boring ones. I've seen several of these first act Volkswagen things that... Oh, there's a hardtail Night V. I didn't know that. I thought that for the first act Volkswagen garage, whatever they call it, that those came when they came with a Volkswagen when you bought a car. But I've now seen like several of these for sale, and maybe you could buy it separately. I mean, I can't imagine that 3 people would have actually bought that car with a guitar and are also simultaneously selling them. I mean, Volkswagens are not that popular here in America anyway, and I want to say that that guitar came with a white Volkswagen Beetle or something. I mean, it's old. It's basically something that happened probably in my childhood, that promotion that they did. So I could be wrong, but I always thought that you could only get that guitar if you bought a Volkswagen. So I may have to fact check that. So this has been really tiresome on Reverb because, as you can see, in the price range specifically, I'm on page 157, whereas I think on Sweetwater there's only 5 pages of new listings. And Guitar Center definitely didn't have this many listings. At this point, a lot of these are just priced high. I've seen these used for cheaper. Grassroots by ESP. Maybe that is sanctioned. That's another of those F-shaped things. Saw one of those cheaper already. Oh my gosh, let's just get this over with. There's really probably not going to be much else that's going to sway me at this point. But I have to look at all the listings up to 300. It's interesting, there's been a couple of signed ones. I don't know this group, but there was one signed by what they called Many Members of Creation 2015, which is, I think, a music festival. Well, we're at least at the $300 mark itself. So hopefully there's fewer that are at 300 than 299.99, although a lot of Reverb listers don't seem to understand that 300 itself is not that smart to advertise at, but there's been some pretty constant wind outside. I keep looking out the window as if I can see it, but it's just air, so I can't see anything. Okay, that's the end. Oh man, that was very tedious. There's no way that I'm going to get away without editing that to speed that part up. Okay, I need to get down to 3 Reverb ones. This one I've never heard of. Bacchus Universe Series. I thought the finish looked interesting. Obviously it's a maple neck, maple top. That's cool. I do like that finish. Looks like maybe a roasted neck with an unroasted fretboard, or maybe that is a roasted fretboard. Let's see. Roasted maple neck, okay. Flame mahogany top. Plastic nut, so I mean, it's a looker. It may not be bad, but I've never heard of this, but that doesn't mean that I would exclude it, but it's not quite my flavor, but it does look pretty cool for $236, but $111 to ship to the US. Here's this Rafferty Clear Skies nonsense. That's just I mean, is it interesting that it looks like a water drop? Yeah. But it's going to sound very compressed. It's like, you ever see those YouTube demos of guitars that are made out of acrylic, or stuff like this, or the ones that somebody makes a guitar out of colored pencils, but it's filled in with all kinds of acrylic? It just has this totally muted, tiny little tight, nasally, sort of overly compressed sound that just doesn't sound good. If this sounded good, I'm sure it's probably not that hard to make. If this one's only a couple $100, I'm sure it would have caught on if they sounded better. Though it is interesting. I mean, I've never had an acrylic guitar, but I've never really wanted one. But I've also never seen one that was this cheap. So, I don't know. Here's this Volkswagen thing, the First Act Garage Master limited edition Volkswagen. I mean, did you not have to buy a Volkswagen to get this? How many of these are there? Let's see. Okay, Wikipedia. Oh, they gave away guitars along with a car. Gave away. The stereos in the car could be used as an amplifier. Yeah, because there's plenty of space to play guitar in your car, of course. That's crazy. So I guess you didn't necessarily have to buy one. So I guess they just gave away a certain number of them, and the free market has decided that they're worth $250. It's odd. I mean, if you were looking for a very quirky little odd guitar to put into a otherwise complete collection, maybe. This was interesting. A Yamaha 1980s rare something or other. It looks pretty good. I like silver. I don't know why they're saying it has a beautiful fretboard. It looks pretty average to me. I don't see any branding on that for some reason. Weird. Can't even really verify anything about it. The Dean Custom Zone for $269. This is in Florida, so the shipping is probably not that crazy in the US. That's just crazy. I think it's just a painted fretboard, if I'm honest. Not acrylic. It's kind of funny though, because like with certain Strat style fretboards, you'll have like a maple board, but it's completely glossed over a lot of the time with polyurethane. And in this case, it's like, why not just paint it if you're going to poly the fretboard? So it's kind of funny. I don't think it would be that much of a detriment against just like a thick poly on maple as far as tone and feel and that type of thing, but it's just very odd looking. There's something kind of just annoying about this, but in kind of a charming way. I'm not going to rule that out right away. This is interesting. Pink gold metallic matte. It's an Ibanez. It's something that'll work, I'm sure. Not a bad look. If you're one of these I don't know if I'd call it rose gold, but if you're one of these rose gold people, you would probably like this. It's a pretty unique look. I guess I'll give them that. It's not my thing. It's only 5 pounds, so there's no way. I mean, that's half the weight that I'm looking for in a guitar. Here's this Jim Cat thing, Red Alligator Telecaster. I'm assuming the Jim Cat is made somewhere very inexpensive. Wow, that's weird. It's just like a murky looking back of the neck. I mean, they don't say where it's made. That is just, that's ugly. I mean, that's just really bad. And here's another one. I like this one more because it has like an alligator, snakeskin, whatever type headstock. And then the back of the headstock and the body is carpeted. Jim Catalano. Good Lord, what? That's strange. That's really strange. I mean, if this was like a real zebra hide and like a real alligator hide, and if it was high quality, it'd be interesting, but obviously not for this price. But that's like a pillow. It looks like a very uncomfortable pillow. There's the hardtail Night V. This Night V's got a trim, which is automatically making it worse. So I just ruled that one out based on this. So that guitar trumps the Trem Night V. Same thing, mahogany body. So that would be the winner for me as far as the Night V's. Well, I guess you could touch that up, but man, I hate it when people ding V's like that. Just whack it into something or stand it on concrete or whatever the hell you do to make it like that. It looks like a D-shaped neck, almost like an Ibanez type neck from just looking at this photo. And that photo, I mean, look at the heel of that. Oh, here's this thing. Starfire 12 and 6 string double neck. Oh man, that is hideous. There's a Clear Skies 2024. Clear Skies 2. Where's the other one? So this one has a different neck, and it has like a, I don't know if that's a different piece of the fretboard or if that's just shielding on the inside that somebody put there. But this looks more authentic without the shielding, but it has like a 3 per side headstock, whereas the other one has like 6 in line, dot inlays. You know, that one's like more of a Les Paul style neck, you could say, except it's bolted to acrylic and Otherwise, that's weird. But is that one cheaper? It can't be. $245. That's $225. Good God. I don't know. I think this is a weird looking neck to be on that. But I also don't like this part that's not transparent on this one. But I also wouldn't play either of them. I just found it interesting to look at. Oh, here's this Pirates of the Caribbean one. I need to close that. I think I clicked on this because I thought the color was interesting. I like that color, but not enough to like this whole guitar, which I've never heard of. But as far as the paint color goes, I think that's on point. Swing Guitar Technology. Here's another one that's cheap that has a finish that I kind of like. I'm kind of liking these light, odd color burst finishes on these quilty cheap guitars. That's kind of an interesting bridge too. Made in Vietnam. Never heard of this brand. I wonder if the bridge is bespoke to them. It's kind of cool. $210. Oh, unfortunately the neck of this guitar has a pretty extreme bow in it and the truss rod nut is stripped. Okay, so it's trash. Okay, custom maple bolt-on SG. Nitro blue sparkle Filtertrons. What in the world? It's like a sparkle finish over wood, which is kind of unique. This reminds me of like one of those things that, I don't know if they still have these or not, but like when I was really young, they used to have these things that were like a rubbery sack of sparkling liquid that you would just like squeeze it and it would like plop out left and right. And the sparkliness of this reminds me of that. Hadn't thought about those things probably ever since I saw one as a kid. It looks like one of those things got spilled onto a guitar, basically. It's not terrible. I don't really hate it. I mean, but also it looks like there's like a chunky off-white spray that's on top of the sparkles on the front of it, at least. I don't really think I like that. But it's kind of fascinating. Okay, here's a slick Tele style. Again, with one of those pretty drastic finishes. Huge scarf joint for the neck. So, a lot of these cheap guitars, including this one, almost all these cheap guitars with the maple necks, you see this big scarf joint. And it's because they build the neck one piece, but in order to not waste wood, So like the way that Gibson builds a neck that's one piece is they take like a piece of wood that's probably like a 4x4 and they carve it literally. That's the piece of wood is like as wide as it is deep, if not deeper. So they can therefore carve the neck out, but they waste twice as much wood when they do that. Whereas a company like this will use a thinner piece of wood, more like a 2x4, for instance, instead of a 4x4. Probably not those dimensions, but you get what I'm saying. So they'll make the main part of the neck on one piece, and then they'll make the headstock on a different piece, and then they do what they call a scarf joint, and they glue them together. So for those people who say that a Les Paul with a headstock repair loses its tone, well, yes, it loses a little bit of tone by having a glue joint, arguably, but not any more tone than one of these types of constructed guitars would ever have from brand new. So I guess what I'm saying is like a headstock repaired Les Paul tonally would be about equal to a neck constructed like this. So, and this is a brand new guitar, and a lot of guitars are made with a scarf joint like this, and a lot of people wouldn't even notice or know the difference or tell the difference. Does this look better than a jagged glued headstock, break that's repaired? Yeah, because this is smooth, but ultimately it makes very little difference to the sound between something built like this or if you had a headstock repaired Les Paul. Obviously the ultimate preference would be to have a single piece neck like on a Les Paul that did not have a break, but once you have it broken and repaired, you basically have this. And a ton of guitars have a scarf joint like this, and it's not really a detriment. This is a V-style parts caster. I thought this was kind of interesting. I mean, you can't really tell anything about it. It looks like there's some white stuff on the fretboard. I don't know what this is. If this is maybe paint. Maybe they didn't tape it off well. They didn't tape this off, whatever the hell that is. Oh, is this a neck break? Oh man, you can't even. I need a closer picture. I think it has a broken neck. Yeah, this thing is like beat. That's absolutely beat. Pass on that. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of a field to choose from. There's a Pacifica. I hate to say it. I mean, this is like the Toyota Corolla of guitars. So if you wanted something that really nobody is going to be excited about the style of, but it's going to always work and actually work pretty well, that's okay, but it's too boring for me here. That's still pretty interesting. This is not my style per se, but if this is your style, I'm sure this would work pretty well. It just might have some corrosion issues in the short term. This top reminds me of like if you saw like a person's eyeball who had a blue eye and you put like a microscope into it, just zoomed way in with a microscope. It's a little creepy to me. I'm not a fan. There's another Pacifica that's ruled out. A purple Beretta Special that looks way brighter than it actually is in reality. Still pretty boring for this field. That's more exciting to me. That's more exciting to me. The Night V is more exciting to me. When it comes down to it, this is too glossy. This may very well be made in Korea. It kind of strikes me as a world music build, just looking at the heavy duty look of it, but This is not exactly my style either. This is definitely not my style, but that's pretty interesting. Let's see, what are we down to? Okay, I already know what it's going to be. So I'm just going to stop right here and say this is my top three between $200 and $300. What guitar would I buy for $300? This would be a contender because I'm interested in playing one. This would be a contender because it's so obnoxious that if I ever showed up to play with anybody with this guitar, it would be like the ultimate prank. But the problem with that is, see, that has a scarf joint too. The problem with that is that I have a feeling this would not be the most playable guitar with this sort of, I don't want to say shitty tremolo, but I don't know what the deal is with that tremolo, but it strikes me as it would not be the easiest guitar in the world to play. So as much as it would be a great prank to show up and play this, it would also be a prank on myself that I would not be able to get through. And of course, you know, between this guitar, well, let's see, what is the body? You know, they used to make all of these with ash, I think. I don't know if it says here, but either way, that's cool. I mean, it is cool. That would be a consideration, honestly, because I've never had anything like that, and it is, you know, it's not trying to look like a classic Tele, obviously. I kind of like that, the look of that in a weird way. But when it comes down to it, this would be my pick. So the Kramer Night V, it's just a satin black, mahogany, maple, and they say ebony fretboard. Even if this wouldn't be my favorite neck profile, it looks to me like the frets are probably tidy enough. It's probably playable. This could be like enough of a shock factor to show up and play this being something totally out of my wheelhouse, but also still at the end of the day probably playable and probably pretty comfortable. And I do actually like this shape. It's hard for me to enjoy a non-flying V-shaped V. Like, to me, the classic look is like just the classic Gibson flying V. In fact, I had one. But for what those cost compared to this, I think this would be totally fine. This is definitely my pick. So, and it is actually, I was going to say, because I think the last, maybe one or maybe both of the last few, I did not choose a guitar that was fully at the end of the price range. This one is at the end of the price range. So that's saying something. This would definitely be it. I would buy this used Kramer Night V with a hardtail, classic recipe, mahogany, maple, and ebony. Little bit cheaply constructed, but honestly, the materials, you're not going to beat that for this price, I don't think. Yeah, that would be my pick. That's it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you disagree, if you think I skipped a really good one, if you think I had a contender that I should have picked, and why. If you have a guitar in the $300 price range, why did you choose what you have? I'd love to hear all your opinions in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.